All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to today's market color recap. Good afternoon, Mr. Evie and Mr. Tope Ogunhin. I hope I pronounced that right. Welcome back. So we're just going to be doing a quick recap of what we did this morning. We did a very detailed analysis on commodity currency pairs, which include AUD/USD, NZD/USD, and USD CAD. And now we're going to be doing a recap on indices, right? So let's start from AUD/USD. So for the sake of those of us who did not join us this morning, I am going to do a brief top-down so that we see the entire process of how we came about this analysis. So AUD/USD on the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame now, right, you can see that our predominant structure has been to the downside for a very long time. It's been selling. And what price is now looking like? It's looking like price has come back to retest a key zone to continue selling in line with the overall weekly structure. I'm going to go ahead and use the Fibonacci retracement tool so that you can see it clearly. So yes, price has now come to retest the 50% fib level and looking like it's having more momentum to the downside. So I'm going to go ahead and mark out this one and take away the Fibonacci tool so our chart does not look too clustered up. Okay, so we now have that in mind. We're now looking at the daily time frame. And on the daily time frame, it is safe to say that price came to take out the liquidity that was residing around this zone. There were stop losses around this level that price was coming for, and it did already. So it has tapped into that, and we're now seeing movement downward. So two things could happen on AUD/USD, the daily time frame that I'm looking out for. We could see a retracement. That price could either just come back here, maybe tap into this fair value gap, and continue to buy because price took out structure. There was a change of character around the zone that happened. So we're going to say retracement into a liquidity point and then price will now continue the upward movement. It is likely. If that does not happen, the next thing we'll now be seeing happening on AUD/USD is that it's going to sell and just keep selling downward in line with what we saw on the weekly time frame. So those are my two perspectives. Regardless, right now what I'm expecting on AUD/USD short term are temporal sells into zones. We can now start looking out for buy situations. So it's not be like a sell to buy, provided this level holds. You can see there's a liquidity level right around that zone as well. And if price does not trade all the way down here, we're going to use our retracement tool again to calculate where it is most likely to trade into. That is now the 50 to 61.8, still in confluence, right? So I'll go ahead and take out this zone. Everything we're now doing is pointing out that we're going to see short-term sales of the AUD/USD. I'm going to show you how I took my first entry because I have been in a retracement trade of this particular asset class. So you can see that price kept giving us higher highs and higher lows consecutively. And then price now came here and gave us a break of structure, but to the downside. So when I saw this break of structure, obviously character changed. We're already seeing momentum to go down. All I had to do was to mark out this doji candle right here. I wanted price to retrace back into this doji candle right here, and then I was going to see the trade, which I did. So price broke structure, gave us this impulse leg, reversed back into that doji candle, and then it sold. So I'm still holding that particular trade. Looking at the next break of structure that we now saw on AUD/USD, because another structure point has been taken out. I am not saying that is there a possibility that AUD/USD is looking to buy back into this zone. Is it looking to buy back into this zone and then continue its sell-off? It is likely. So this is a possibility that price will just do this, buy back into this level, and then we'll now see the sell continuation into these different points of interest that we have marked out. So this is our overall perspective on right now I'm in a temporal sell-off of AUD/USD and I'm looking to sell back into this zone. And if I see confirmations around this zone, I will be buying. So sell to buy. And if this zone is validated, then we know that our weekly structure is going to be continued and the sell will keep selling. Okay, so NZD/USD now. Looking at NZD/USD on the weekly time frame, it's quite similar to what we saw on AU, only difference being that this gave us a very clear break of structure. This took out this point quite cleanly. So the break of structure here is not as it was on AU. So okay, regardless, our structure is still to the downside. If we go ahead and use our retracement tool to calculate from point A to B, looks like price came downward here to just test into what the ICC traders call the OTE. That is what price has now done into 61.8 to 50% level. It has traded into this zone and will most likely continue to sell. Looking at daily time frame now, I'll go ahead and remove that Fibonacci tool. You don't need that chart, it's too much. So on a daily time frame, this is the structure point you just marked out, right? You can see that it's already reacting from that particular structure point. So I am saying that price took out liquidity, found some sort of resistance around the zone. It is reacting from this resistance level, another confluence for a temporal sell-off. So if this level keeps on holding, it is not going to sell, but sell into where? Price does not just sell because it hit resistance, it sells into liquidity levels. So resistance has been hit, weekly time frame, extra confluence. I'm saying that there's a possibility NZD-USD will sell into this first liquidity point. What is there? There's a fair value gap right here. So this first liquidity point, or it's going to sell into the next liquidity, which is the next FVG. And if it happens to violate these two zones, it is coming into the IOFED that we have. IOFED is basically having two fair value gaps on the opposite side. So these are now the liquidity points that I'm seeing NZD-USD selling into. Come here, buy. If not, it's going to come in here. If it finds support, it's going to start buying. If not, it's coming all the way down here. And if it violates all of these zones, then it is safe to say that the weekly sell-off of NZD-USD has been continued. So 4-hour time frame, what am I seeing? Predominant structure, looking at most recent price action is to the upside, right? So if this is to the upside, I'm saying that price will still retrace downward. That is, if the 4-hour time frame is going to hold. Remember that price is cracked out. So whatever the lower time frames do, the higher time frames will eventually catch up. So provided or assuming that this buy structure is going to be continued, we are still going to see a temporal sell-off of NZD-USD into these zones before it is continued. Are you seeing how I'm pinning the story together? So I'm saying price is going to sell off most likely into these different points of interest. And then if they hold, fine, we start looking for buy opportunities. If they do not hold, then we know that the sell has continued. So a perfect place to enter these sells that are seen on NZD-USD is also here. It is the exact same thing as we saw on AU. There's a break of structure to the downside and a doji candle right here. So price traded back into that zone. This is what we call the other block, where you have a candle and a big move downward that swallowed the previous. So price is now trading into this other block and it sold downward, right? We have not seen a new break below the structure point though. So if you're looking to enter for a sell, it is not as clean as I would prefer to enter now. Why? Because price failed to break structure around the zone. The clear structure we had was here. So this impulse leg did not take out this BOS. So if you want to jump into the setup of NZD-USD, I would say wait, not yet. I want to see a clean break here first, and then start looking for entries to continue selling. So for now, we cannot draw a POI for the sell retracement. If instead we're going to keep waiting and see what NZD-USD does, but our point of interest are still very much valid. These are the signals on the chart. So you take note of these normal points and then look at them on your charts. You see confirmations, you take those trades. So this is what we are now looking out for. NZD-USD, AUD-USD, I'm seeing temporary sell-offs, and then we'll continue to buy, provided our POIs hold. The final asset class I'm looking at before my colleague comes to give his analysis on indices is now the USD card. So USD card, the weekly time frame, what do we see? Structure is to the upside, right? So we should be looking for buy opportunities, provided this zone holds. Price has now traded into the 61.8. It's in between this zone, but it has not tapped into this level. So it's safe to say the level that is holding is the 61.8% level right here. So now that you are here, what is going to happen? Is there a possibility that we're going to see USD card retrace back into the zone? I'm going to delete this Fibonacci swing and go back to the weekly. So are we going to see something like this? Into this tiny, very tiny fair value gap we had here, and then maybe continue to sell, or are you going to just keep buying from this one? Let us do more analysis on lower time frames to get a clear picture. So predominant structure is to the upside. All of these moves are minor structures within this major structure, right? So what I'm thinking is that price is going to come here, right, and then start to buy. Regardless, if you decide to flip this entire thing from here to here, this is a good point for USD card to continue its buy, right? If you're marking out this zone, this is a good point for it to continue its buy. But then you now go a time frame like H4, and you see that H4 structure is predominantly to the downside. So, and that's why I'm now focusing on this most recent swing. And I'm saying that come back in here, buy into this zone, right? If it holds, we continue to sell USD card from this level. And if it breaks above, then we know that the buy move of the USD card, this buy move has resumed, and we're going to continue buying USD card. Was this helpful to somebody? Please let me know before I hand over to my colleague. Everything you see on the chart is a story. Every candlestick, every resistance, support, supply, demand, whatever it is called, it tells a story, right? Our duty is to be able to analyze and discuss how these stories will help us make money. But please let me know, was this helpful to somebody? Do you have questions? Don't ask me in the chat box before I give space for my colleague to take us through his analysis. All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be back very, very shortly to continue the second half of this analysis. As our boss would always say, cheers and God bless.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second part of this market follow session. How are we doing today? Hope our day is going well. J. Man Charles, forgive me if I didn't get our pronunciation correctly. Oluwaseun, Stanley, Tokbe, Warner, how are you doing? Hope you're good. All right, so let's go to the chart straight up. The second part of the analysis, we look at US 30, NAS 100, and S&P 500, seeing what the market has done so far, so good. It's been interesting that we've seen that the market is beginning to correct the upside, like we mentioned this morning, right? Because of what we're expecting from the United States president in terms of negotiating with China, having a proper negotiation with the Chinese government so that there can be, that rally that we're waiting for. Let me click on US 30. Okay. So the levels we marked out this morning is still very much valid, right? And US 30, also on NAS 100, and S&P 500. We stated very clearly this morning that on the daily time frame, we are a bit bearish. However, recent structure is indicative that we are beginning to, move to the upside, right? And the reason for this is due to, the tariff relaxation we've seen so far, and also from other information, VIX indicator, right? That's gauge of fear. It's beginning to tank also, which indicates that investors are now beginning to be optimistic in the market to put their money back into the US market. So we have that going on. But then structurally speaking, let's look at the market. We're expecting, like we said this morning, we're expecting a drop to the downside to this other block, and then from there we'll see a shift to the upside, like price coming to tap this other block, and then we'll start buying to the upside. That's a possibility. Also on US 100, which is the NASDAQ, we have this area marked out, right? Unlike US 30, on US 100, we've seen that there's a clear break of structure to the upside or change of character for those that might not understand what this is, right? What this is. So there's a pure change of character here. So we have two areas of interest marked out on the chart for us. That's this first level here, 8,104.7, and the 17,717.9 level, right? So we expect that price is going to drop to one of this level, and then we start seeing a rally to the upside. Presently, the market is just, what's it called? Preparing to open in the US. US stock market open by 2:30. Sometime if there's daylight saving, can be 3:30-ish, right? However, I think by 2:30 we should see that open to the upside. Open in the market, right? Can be to the upside or to the downside. We can't say specifically All right. So on S&P 500, something unique on S&P 500 happened, which I was unable to share this morning, although I touched on it, right? On S&P 500, you can see clearly that there's a break, right? Although it's a week, there's a break of structure, right? Proper break of structure. On US 30, see what we have on US 30. On US 30, we just add this break here. It hasn't broken through this final zone, right? However, on S&P 500, we've seen that break, right? So I mentioned earlier that using correlation analysis, right? Inter asset relationship, we expect that if we start seeing that push on S&P 500, clearly we would see it on US 30 because they will always move in tandem, right? They will always move together, except in rare cases, right? And especially with what we have now, which is the markets being driven strongly by fundamental, they will tend to move in the same direction. So by the time US 30 start rallying to the upside, we should see that movement on S&P 500 on what's it called? On S&P 500, or the reverse being happening. We start seeing movement on S&P 500, we expect it on US 30, right? So we expect like the market come to the downside for this other block here, tap this other block and, you know, start rallying to the upside. Then we should see the same happen with this guy too, right? Coming to the downside, tap into, you know, the other block and then moving to the upside. So all of this that I've mentioned so far so good is still dependent on the fact that China and the United States have that discussion, right? Once they have that discussion, then that will boost investors' confidence in the US stock. And you see, once they have that discussion, one of the things that was going to happen also is that we see fear index, which is volatility index, right? VIX, you will see it tank even further to the downside. You see it tank further to the downside, probably reaching 20.0 level, or even you know, sweeping all of these points, right? Once we see that happen, then expect also that on gold, you will see the what's it called? Reflection. On gold, you will see a massive sell-off because this simply means that we have risks on in the markets. Investors are moving their money from safe haven assets into riskier assets that can give them much better cash flow. Before now, what has happened so far during all of this rally to the upside is that we saw investors removing their money from every risk asset and putting it in safe haven, right? That was when the tariff game started initially. Trump was throwing numbers at different countries and investors were panicking, right? But right now, they are beginning to come to a compromise. We are beginning to see a sell-off in the market. So once this sell-off happens, we see value flowing back into US 30, US 100, and S&P 500. Also, you will see gold, that's XAU USD, starting to sell off, right? So that being said, we've come to the end of analysis today. This is just a recap of what was done in London session. That's 8:30 in the morning. We're just doing like a recap. Let me know if you have any question. Daniel, Oluwaseun, Stanley, Tokbe, and do you have any question? One, I hope I got that pronunciation correctly. Winner, do you have any question whatsoever, so that especially on this analysis we've done, do you have any question before we call it a day? So we'll prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow analysis is based on USD and JPY basket and also gold, right? DXY, JPY basket, gold. We'll be talking on GBP USD, Euro USD, Euro JPY, GBP JPY, and XAU USD. We said all good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. No question for now. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, until next time, ensure you don't size your positions in the market. Until next time, cheers and God bless everyone.